Hey guys, welcome to our channel, The Bright Storyteller. Today we're diving deep into the plot of the movie Sky. Spoilers ahead, let's get started. The movie Sky is based on real events. It's a movie about the Russian military pilots who found themselves in a danger zone in the Syrian Arabian Republic. The prologue of the film tells a brief background of the events. In the March of 2011, there was an event called the Arab Spring, during which a horde of terrorists had come into Syria. Mass executions began in the country, architectural monuments were destroyed, looting and misconduct had increased exponentially in the region. A country with a 1,000-year history had plunged into darkness. When the forces were weakening, the Syrian government turned to the Russian Federation for help. The Russian military began actively supporting Syria in the fight against international terrorism. November 24, 2015 is a day of controversy, where supposedly a Turkish F-16 fighter jet shot down a Russian aircraft bomber Su-24 near the Syrian-Turkish border. The plane crashed in the northern Syrian province of Latakia. The film begins with two Russian pilots, Lieutenant Colonel Oleg Shoshnikov and Captain Konstantin, whose plane gets shot down and the two men retreat into the forest to hide from their pursuers. When the terrorists catch up to the Russian pilots, a gunfire ensues, which implies that the terrorists were not looking for live hostages. The Russian heroes were close to escape. However, a trap is triggered by the men and their location is compromised. As a result, they are caught by the terrorists. Konstantin is beaten and taken prisoner. Oleg takes out a grenade, pulls the pin, and shows it to his pursuers, who surround him.
Combat exercises for the survival of pilots have been completed.
The movie shows a flashback of Oleg with his family before the conflict. Oleg is met by his wife and children after returning from military service. On the screen of their TV set, they watch the news about the difficult situation in Syria, which foreshadows the hero's future involvement in the conflict. Oleg and his wife go to the store, where they run into some friends who offer Oleg to change jobs and go into civil aviation. Returning home, Galina, Oleg's wife, tries to persuade Oleg to leave the army and to accept his friend's offer. Oleg decides to do so and prepares for his interview. At the office of a private aviation company, a friend meets Oleg and introduces him to the director. It turned out that the director was his former classmate and rival at the military college for pilots, Yuri Grishin, with whom Oleg had disagreements about world views on life and attitude towards their homeland. Yuri offers to forget all the insults from the past and offers Oleg a job position with a salary of $7,000 per month. But the catch is that Oleg will have to work not for Russia but for a foreign country. Being a true patriot, Oleg refuses Yuri's offer, and before leaving he quotes, "I do not work for Russia, I serve Russia." After returning to his military base, he receives news from the higher-ups that Russia is officially participating in the Syrian conflict. And the best part, Oleg and Konstantin were approved for a sortie to Syria. Helena worries about her husband and does not want him to fly on the mission. But Oleg explains to his wife that this is his job and he volunteered for this mission. Helena doesn't like the news, but she supports her husband's decision. Meanwhile, Konstantin and his pregnant wife are waiting for their first child. During this time, the leadership of the Russian armed forces is coordinating the final group of pilots. It was decided that Su-24 frontline bombers were participating in regular sorties. Each crew has two pilots. All aircraft crew members continue to conduct training and briefings for the upcoming combat flight to Syria. The last day of training comes and each pilot suddenly receives a message about their leave. It turns out to be a surprise farewell party from their wives and children. The next morning, the pilots fly to the Russian-Syrian military base. At the base, Oleg meets his colleagues who have already completed sorties. The pilot reports that together with Oleg, they will make a test flight. The pilot says that the flight of their bomber will be covered by 2 Russian fighters. The flight must take place at an altitude of 6,000 meters to avoid being shot down. At this time, the Syrian army scouts arrive at the base and inform the Russian military about the upcoming meeting of the terrorist leaders, where they plan to discuss the purchase of chemical weapons and the best place to capture an infamous terrorist named Abu Herat. Major Vadim Zakharov, who leads the troops of elites, is ordered to capture the criminal alive. And now it's finally time for the operation. All fighters are ready to begin the mission. Intelligence reports that the target Abu Herat has been identified and is ready for capture. But it turns out that the building where he is hiding also has a chemical laboratory and a weapons production workshop. The group decides to immediately start an assault, but suddenly Major Vadim tells everyone to stop. He notices that 9 vehicles with heavy weapons are approaching them. These are the weapon buyers. Vadim decides to attack the convoy of cars in order to distract the terrorists and help the second squad capture Abu Herat. Thus, the battle begins. The group on the mountains begin to ambush the convoy of cars. The terrorists react to this and retaliate with all their might. At that time, a special group inside the building captures Abu Herat and advances with him to the exit. The terrorists notice the ploy and realize that the Russians have captured their leader, then try to stop the military, but they fail. Vadim's group, which is located on the mountain, helps his people get out of the building and attracts all the attention to his squad. Vadim contacts the headquarters and says that they have found the target and the weapons factory. The military command orders Vadim's group to retreat in 20 minutes before an airstrike will be launched on the target. Simultaneously, the terrorist backup arrives. Vadim decides to retreat to their vehicles under the cover of mortars. Good training and special equipment helps the military retreat without much loss. The military base orders Oleg and Konstantin to take a Su-24 bomber to the airstrike zone. The plane drops bombs on the terrorist base and the base explodes. Oleg and Konstantin safely return to the base. After some time, a meeting is held at the military base. The commander-in-chief says that they talked to Abu Herat and they found out that the terrorists have stolen an MLRS. This is a multiple launch rocket system, a very powerful weapon with a range of more than 120 kilometers. After that, a decision is made to prevent the installation process of the MLRS. There's a conversation between mercenary and terrorists. They understand that Abu Herat was captured by the Russians and has told them about the MLRS and its location, so they decide to move the installation to the Turkish border. They know that Turkish planes have been circling the borders for a month now waiting for prey, and they definitely won't like the presence of Russian bombers. The terrorists have more connections in Turkey and will warn the pirates about any hostile aircrafts. Sometime later, the squad leader Vadim approaches the pilots and says they have found the MLRS and that it's located 4 kilometers from the border of Turkey. Soon, 2 Russian Su-24 bombers take off into the sky and fly towards the target. The takeoff planes is immediately reported to the terrorists. Intelligence confirmed that the installation is in place and can be interrupted. The terrorists know that they are being watched and decide to drive the installation even closer to the border of Turkey, where Turkish planes will meet them. Oleg and Konstantin receive the command toward their target. But suddenly one of the pilots notices an unfamiliar plane. This is an F-16C of the Turkish Air Force. Without border violation warning, the Turkish plane fires 2 missiles. One of them hits the plane with Oleg and Konstantin. The plane lights on fire and the pilots decide to eject from the aircraft. The terrorists immediately open fire on the pilots who are parachuting down. Oleg is mortally wounded and falls to the ground. A group of terrorists approach the killed pilot and begin to rejoice in his death. Meanwhile, co-pilot Konstantin is trying to hide from the militants by running into the forest. The Russian armed forces learn about the plane crash. The Russian military tries to contact the Turkish embassy, but the Turkish command is silent and does not respond. Without waiting for a response from the Turkish side, Russian military helicopters rise from the military base to rescue the pilots. At this time, Konstantin reports the crash and the situation on the emergency radio, but the militants notice him and begin to pursue him. At this time, Russian helicopters appear and a shootout begins. As a result, one of the helicopters makes an emergency landing. Konstantin is wounded and militants surround him. The downed helicopter lands in a wasteland. Several terrorist cars immediately drive up to the helicopter and begin to attack it. The military board the undamaged helicopter and take off. The terrorists decide to take the Russian pilot alive in order to publicly burn him at the stake. They pull together more and more forces and begin to search for him. The deceased pilot and the surviving pilot are reported to the President of Russia. The President gives the order for an immediate operation rescue for the surviving pilot and to eliminate all threat. In brief, Konstantin is rescued, all the militants are eliminated, and the Russian troops began a massive fire on the terrorist soldiers, in the process destroying many buildings and terrorist warehouses. In the last scene of the movie, a closed coffin is taken out of the plane on which Oleg's cap lies. He is greeted with respect and is posthumously given the title Hero of Russia. That's it for today's video. If you enjoy our content, feel free to subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next one.